As we are settling in, may I please request all our everyone in audience to please put your phones on silent. So we can go ahead with an uninterrupted proceedings. Assalamualaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, our honorable session chair has arrived. We will now start our session. Thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Imrana Niazi, and on behalf of SDPI, I welcome you to this mega event. This SDC, it's the 28th one in the series. We have this opportunity to host this session on South Asian Coalition for Improved Nutrition, Transforming Food Systems Through Fiscal and Trade Policies Reforms. The session is a joint collaboration between SDPI and IDRC. We are honored to have experts from around the globe as our session speakers. Please join me to welcome our esteemed panelists as I introduce them. The session will be chaired by Ms. Sayyida Rizwana Hassan. The Honorable Sayyida Hassan is an attorney and an environmental advocate serving as an advisor, Minister for Environment, and she's the head of Bangladesh Environmental Lawyers Association. We are privileged to have you preside as the session chair, ma'am. For scene setting of this session, we have Ms. Madiha Ahmed, Ms. Ahmed is a senior program specialist at the IDRC. She's an expert at developing programs focused on transforming food systems and improving access to healthy diets through research in climate change and gender equity. Thank you for joining us, Ms. For special comments, we have Mr. Uday Namalgama, is currently serving as head of district at the Consumer Affairs Authority under the Ministry of Trade, Sri Lanka, where he oversees trade-related operations to ensure the availability and fair distribution of essential food and consumer goods at the district level. Thank you for joining us, sir. Then we have Ms. Shabnam Shivakoti, who will also be giving special comments at the session. She's a Joint Secretary at the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Government of Nepal. With over 25 years of experience in government service, she has worked extensively in the areas of food and nutrition security, climate change, agribusiness, and agriculture trade. Thank you, Ms. We have Mr. Mohsin Mushtaq Channa, DG Debt Finance Division, Government of Pakistan. He has served as the Government of Pakistan in several roles, including as Economic Minister at the Embassy of Pakistan in Washington, D.C., where he has engaged with international financial institutions and the U.S. administrations on Pakistan's economic policies. Thank you, sir. As for our esteemed speakers, we have experts representing Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. From Pakistan, we have Mr. Saqib Shirani, founder and CEO of Macroeconomics Insights. He has wide-ranging experience in public policy, the financial sector, international capital markets, at the corporate board level, and in the development sector. He is also the author of Pakistan chapter of the SACIN report, which he'll be presenting. Thank you, sir. From Sri Lanka, we have Ms. Hassani Rajapaksha, research professional from SIPA. From Nepal, we have Ms. Neelu Thapa, Senior Fellow, SOTI Nepal, and Mr. Badruddin Sefi. He's a research associate at our foundation, Bangladesh. As we start this session, to shed light on this most pressing issue that South Asia is facing, which is rising food insecurity and persistent undernourishment. For scene setting, may I please invite Ms. Madiha Ahmed to shed some light on the background, significance, and the purpose why we have gathered here today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, all. My name is Madiha Ahmed. I am with Canada's International Development Research Centre. IDRC supports and strengthens the capacity of people and institutions in low and middle income countries to undertake the research that they identify as most urgent. It works with researchers and research users as they confront contemporary challenges within their own countries and contributes to global advances in their fields. So why we are here today is part of the team that I am based in. I am part of our climate resilient food systems teams, and we fund research that helps build equitable, inclusive, and sustainable food systems. This work helps develop resilience amongst communities severely affected by climate change. So at our core of our programming, we look at climate resilience, food quality and security, nutrition, gender equality, and inclusion. I am honored to be here with our hosts, the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, as well as colleagues from ARC Foundation Bangladesh, the South Asia Watch on Trade Economics and Environment Nepal, and the Center for Poverty Analysis Sri Lanka, as well as many other academics, practitioners, and policymakers from Pakistan and the region. I actually count in the room as our special guests, colleagues from the Ministries of Agriculture Nepal, Ministry of Environment Bangladesh, Ministry of Trade Sri Lanka, and here from Pakistan from our finance division, which just goes to show why it is so important to take a multi-sectoral approach to change. So let's start by talking about why we work on food systems transformation. Food systems are increasingly considered as an effective lever to address the complex social, economic, environmental challenges that threaten the planet's people and ecosystems. Multiple innovations have made promising yet incremental progress towards greater climate resilience, health, and equity through different parts of the food system. So we do have to look at all the different components. So production, distribution, consumption, waste management, for example. So leveraging these approaches for broader impact requires coordination across multiple food system components. And it requires a mobilization of coalitions of actors from across different environments, just as we were saying. So academics, decision makers, civil society, private sector, producers organizations, across different sectors, just as we were saying, agriculture, health, education, trade, finance. And we also work at different scales. So from the local to the national and international or regional. And strengthening these coalitions or transdisciplinary networks of actors is essential if we're going to develop strategies for a shared vision for food systems transformation. So IDRC comes at this from our decades of investment and particularly since our more systematic work since 2020. And we've worked on research initiatives on healthy diets, sustainable and alternative food production, cultural dimensions of food systems, and the role of coalitions in public procurement. So our focus very much when we talk about food systems transformation is towards what? Which is the triple co-benefits of equity, sustainability, and health. What we do know about what works for food systems transformation, and this comes from our early investments in Latin America and Africa, and increasingly now in Asia, which this is a part of, that it is very important to identify and advance pathways to dismantle barriers to food systems transformation. So in the pathways that we know work, one of them is addressing taxes and subsidies that are oriented towards shifting from conventional food systems and addressing unequal access to land and resources. It is important to nurture bottom-up processes. So when we talk about collaboration and co-creation, we have participatory and inclusive models for governance, policy making, and even in the way we do our research and innovation. We also prioritize supporting territorial and landscape approaches to food systems transformation. We work in the Americas, so that means supporting indigenous leadership in food systems change. We connect food systems actors across scales, so national to local and cross-regional, to build a collective vision and planning for change. And as I've said, we prioritize equity, including gender equity, social inclusion, and human rights. So keeping people at the center of the change that we want to see. And when we talk about innovations that we support and want to scale, we're looking at innovations that reduce inequality and vulnerability. So while speaking about food systems specifically, we must not forget that the ultimate outcome of food systems is what people eat and their health outcomes. This includes nutrition, of course, but other health metrics are also important outcomes because we know diet-related non-communicable diseases are a major factor in the global disease burden and is directly linked to the rapid dietary transitions that we are witnessing globally. To combat this triple burden of malnutrition, our focus is not just what food we produce, although that is important, but also in changing what people eat. So we have generated a lot of research evidence on the effectiveness of different food environment policies. So this can be, for instance, taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages, which you have now recently in Pakistan, marketing restrictions on unhealthy items, front-of-pack labeling that is also under consideration here in Pakistan, and other fiscal and regulatory measures to reduce the competitiveness of unhealthy items and increase access and affordability of nutritious and healthy diets. We started work on supporting modeling on sugar-sweetened beverages nearly a decade ago, and now more than 100 countries across the world have some form of that taxation. We started work on the use and application of nutrient profile models for double duty policy bundles, and that is also expanding rapidly. And this also means looking at policy structures such as school meals programs and institutional procurement mechanisms, and taxes to cover other unhealthy products, not just sugar-sweetened beverages. So what is IDRC's role in this change? We fund research, and our research for impact should be needs-driven, solution-oriented, and co-produced with users to ensure relevance and usability. Research quality, of course, means when we're looking at gender and equity considerations, we go beyond just a look at, let's say, women's participation, but think about structural inequities so that interventions are truly designed to be equitable and inclusive. And we want to look at long-term practical changes in structural power dynamics, social norms that have defined the differentiated experience of people across the food system. So our research to policy focus, therefore, must include the following 3 priorities that I hope we will see in all 4 country presentations. Number 1, a robust evidence base. So that connects learning from global literature to country and context-specific data and analysis. The second part, an understanding that a single policy is insufficient for change and transformation. The focus must be on developing a set of complementary and mutually reinforcing policies and regulatory tools to strengthen food environments. And finally, and I hope that we will see in practice today, that change requires support from a broad coalition, not just engagement with policymakers and technical experts, many of you in the room, but also public support. Sustainable changes, particularly those that could potentially restrict consumer choice, need public awareness and support. So since our focus is on structural transformation, and here we're thinking about our pathways through fiscal and trade policy reform, this must be grounded in practice and social cultural narratives. And change becomes profound when they hold influence at different scales, which is, again, very important when we're thinking about food systems, because they operate very, very locally, but are impacted by provincial, national policies, as well as regional trends. So when we think about food systems transformation and the coalition work that is necessary, some of the work that we would like to see going forward and that we hope that the research presented here will inform is the repurposing and optimizing or altering of fiscal and regulatory policies that influence production, consumption, and trade. We hope to develop evidence for strengthening the economic rationale for viable systemic shifts. So the scaling of local food hubs or circular food economies. We're looking to leverage international commitments and regional economic cooperation and organizations for local application. Addressing power disparities, of course, is critical, amplifying the voice of those that are marginalized in food systems, articulating create attraction for business case and change pathways for regenerative or, let's say, sustainably sourced agriculture. And a lot of this, and I know Saqib Saab speaks to this a lot, understanding potential constraints and trade-offs, because everything has an opportunity cost. So how do you make choices? Because our focus is scaling efforts to amplify the positive impacts of food systems transformations. Do we have time, or shall I try and? So let me conclude here with what I hope to see with the results that we will have presented here. It is very, very important that while we're talking about the evidence, we also think about how they inform policy and best practice. So our knowledge translation strategy in each of our 4 countries is going to be very important, and I'll be looking for that in the discussion, is how we include community-led policy dialogues, undertake inclusive stakeholder engagement, and how we might set up multi-stakeholder coordination platforms, both at the local and the national level, as well as the regional level. Today's session is one such example, which is why your inputs and comments during the Q&A will be very, very critical. So we look forward to working with you all so the evidence we shared today contributes to meaningful change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Madiha, for lending us your lens with which we'll be able to see and hear and learn from this session. We now have 3 presentations, 4, from Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. And right after these presentations, we would invite comments from our Mr. Uday and Ms. Shabnam on each of their respective country chapters. So starting with Pakistan, may I request Mr. Saqib Shirani. Each one of our speakers, the presentation part, we are requesting all our speakers to give us, your insights and all your learnings in 7 minutes, please. After that, because this amazing session that we have put together, and we are most indebted that all of your hair, we would want each and every speaker to have ample time to speak. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Imrana, and thank you, SDPI. It's a privilege to be presenting. So in the interest of time, I do have a very short sort of presentation. It's a very high level kind of some of the key takeaways from the work that we did. So let me just quickly take you through the context. I think obviously most of you are familiar with Pakistan's context. It's facing a very high, alarmingly high triple burden of malnutrition, on all 3 sort of fronts. And if you look at, the various sort of indicators, 2 things stand out. They're obviously, the prevalence of undernourishment or the prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurity is very high. So is the percentage of population unable to afford a healthy diet. But one of the key things I think here is that on each of these indicators, Pakistan is worse off than the average for South Asia and the average for the cohort of low and middle income countries. So, it's concerning, and not just in a standalone sense, but also in a relative sense, that Pakistan's indicators are, not moving in the right direction. Overall, the economic cost of malnutrition is estimated at between 3 to 3.7% of GDP annually. So that's a very significant cost. And obviously, as we've listed, there's a, intergenerational issue here, because for example, the number of children or the percentage of children under 5 years that are stunted or that are wasted is unbearably high from a policy perspective. So the overall context is that while these indicators are obviously very alarming, the good news is that food security, addressing malnutrition, and promoting healthy diets has gained increased policy attention over the last few years. A large part of that is a commitment to meeting the SDGs. The government has, or various, the last 2 or 3 governments have gradually moved towards a multi-sectoral approach. There is a greater institutional focus and some degree of policy coordination. But there are obviously gaps in the approach and in the implementation, which we'll talk about here. So these gaps include the absence of an integrated and holistic framework for food security anchored by a national food security law. So we still, we've not moved like India has done, for example, towards a rights-based approach to food security, which I think is a big gap that we need to move towards or close. We need to strengthen the multi-sectoral approach. We have currently in Pakistan a sort of a focus on at-risk districts and the vulnerable cohorts like pregnant and lactating women. But we need to upscale this to a nationwide approach, especially vis-a-vis school meals programs. And we need to strengthen and streamline institutional arrangements. Currently, there is still a degree of fragmentation, especially when it comes to the center and provincial coordination. That needs to be strengthened. And what this report has really focused on is both the quantum and the quality of public financing or public spending in this area needs to improve. So that is something that I focused on, given my background, especially with the Ministry of Finance as well in the past. So, just very quickly, the fiscal context is that the current spending envelope, so this is the FY26 budget, both at the center level and the provincial levels, combined the total spending that has been allocated in the budget for nutrition specific as well as nutrition sensitive expenditures is 1.3% of GDP. Now, the breakup of this is surprisingly, even though that a large part of this is related under the constitutional assignments to the provinces, but it's the federal side which is actually spending more than the provincial side, right? So if the federal public expenditure allocation is 0.8% of GDP, the provincial expenditure allocations, both for nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive, is only 0.5% of GDP. And when you look at the federal public expenditure, break it up into nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive expenditures, we find that nutrition specific expenditures or spending is really low. It's only 0.06% of GDP. And a 10-year review, spending review tells us that this is not an outlier. Unfortunately, nutrition specific spending has averaged around this number, 0.07% of GDP over the last 10 years. And if you look at this in terms of its adequacy, so when you map it to the affected cohort, this translates nutrition-specific federal budget allocation for FY26 translates to only $2.64 US dollars per annum for each affected member of the cohort, right? So clearly, this is not enough by any standards. The other thing that we've noticed, one of the other key takeaways is that not only is the quantum low, but these expenditures are not protected, i.e., there is a high degree of inter-year volatility, especially during IMF programs which focus on fiscal austerity. Then these expenditures get cut. So that's something that we need to protect. And within the nutrition specific expenditures in Pakistan, there's a high degree of seasonality, i.e., a large part of these programs are focused around Ramzan spending, right? So, it's USC, utility stores corporations or giving them, these Ramzan packages. And then for the rest of the year, the spending is really just dwindles down to close to zero. It just flatlines. So this is something that I think the government needs to look at. So what are the implications for fiscal policy generally? That the budgetary allocations have to ramp up significantly across priority areas. So, we've identified some of these which we think are gaps: National School Meals Program, fortification programs, the conditional transfers or even the unconditional transfers to the BISP Nashonama program is really a pilot program and it needs to be upscaled. Then, in terms of nutrition sensitive expenditures, I think clearly what we've identified is that there's the investment in climate smart agriculture, in irrigation, in agri-research and extension services. These need to be ramped up quite substantially. And then there are tax exemptions that we talk about for farm machinery, for baby formula food, pasteurized milk, pulses, micronutrient supplements, premixes, etc., that need to be ramped up as well. These are currently, very low or not on the radar screen at all. Now, the implication obviously is that this will require higher domestic resource mobilization. So this needs to tie into domestic resource mobilization strategy that specifically throws up resources for this kind of spending. We've also, like Madiha spoke about SSBs, taxing SSBs. Now we need to talk about the next level or is how to earmark that taxation or the revenue from that taxation to specific measures. There's reprioritization of public expenditure, reducing leakages, use of public-private partnerships, mobilize donor funding and innovative financing. So one of the themes of the SDC is innovative financing. But I think here an area that's really underexplored in our case is how we can use innovative financing for improved nutritional outcomes. And then the non-fiscal measures. For example, one of the things that struck out is that if you want to incentivize farm mechanization, then we don't need to do anything beyond, allow hypothecation of farm machinery so that farmers are able to borrow against, that particular asset. So some of these are really fiscal measures. Now, there's obviously a role for trade policy, a really important role that we've talked about in somewhat general terms, that we need to reduce tariffs and the non-tariff barriers on high nutrition food imports. We need to apply high import duties on unhealthy foods. There's a very strong need to strengthen the SPS regime to ensure not just that there's safe food imports and access to high nutrition foods, but also that it supports local agricultural development and provides access to export markets for high value crops. I think these are obviously well understood, and the report has more specific areas to talk about. So I'll end here. This was a high level review of the chapter that Imran spoke about, both on the fiscal side and the trade policy side, what can be done and what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. I should not be, but I'm just provoked to learn more about this right-based approach that India has taken. Maybe during the discussion or after the discussion, you can throw some light on this.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Shirani, for being right on time. So now over to Ms. Hassani. Please go ahead.
This is not a presentation.
No.
No, it's not.
No. It's the
It's the presentation. The one usually is it has your presentation.
this is my one.
Yeah. Yes. Thank
Good evening to you all. Now I'm going to present the study we conducted in Sri Lanka under the SACIN project funded by IDRC and led by STPI. So as we all know, this is our general objective of the study to establish a South Asia-wide research policy and practice network to advance the role of fiscal and trade policies in promoting healthy and nutritious dietary choices. So according to our context in Sri Lanka, we have identified fourfold specific objectives here. The first one is to formulate actionable policy framework that align with the fiscal and trade policy reforms and also the nutritional goals. And the second one is to provide empirical evidence on the effectiveness of these policies. And also then third one is to understand how these trade and fiscal policies impact on the different demographic groups of within the communities. And also, finally, to explore how these trade and fiscal policy measures can work together to provide nutritional outcomes and healthier consumption patterns. So this is the conceptual framework we have developed based on the study objectives. You can see how the fiscal and trade policies impact on food choices based on taxes, tariffs, and the subsidies, and also the trade agreements. And then through the pillars of the food security as affordability, availability, utilization, and the stability, you can see how it impact on the nutrition security, and also then the impact on demographic groups within the communities, how they impact on the food choices and the nutrition security, how it impacts on these groups. And finally, all of these components will affect on the economic productivity and the fiscal sustainability of the country. So based on this conceptual framework, we have designed a dual approach combining qualitative and quantitative methodologies together to assess how these fiscal and trade policies impact on the nutritional dietary choices of the people. As the quantitative approach, we go for the GTAP CG model. Here you can see the general equilibrium model, computable equilibrium model to assess the how these tariff changes impact on the import dynamics, domestic production, and the market prices, the nutrition availability, trade agreements, and finally the welfare of the society. So you can see here there are several policy scenarios that using this GTAP CG model, we can assess how the impacts of the removal of tariffs and the removal of VAT, value-added taxes, and finally the impact on MRP, the maximum retail prices in local markets, how these affect on the food imports and also the availability, affordability of these products in the local markets. Then when we talk about the qualitative approach, here you can see within the communities we have we conducted some focus group discussions with 5 types of groups like adult women, adult men, young girls, young boys, and also the pregnant and lactating mothers to see these fiscal and trade policies, how they impact on these groups at the ground level. And we conducted these focus group discussions in 4 districts of Sri Lanka. They are Kurunegala, Nuwara, Jaffna, and Colombo. In Anuradhapura district, we have conducted focus group discussions to pre-test the FGD guides and also the KII guides. You can see the key informant interviews we have conducted with the community leaders in the areas and also some of the government officers, development officers, and midwives in these areas. By this qualitative approach, we gathered some policy-based evidences on dietary patterns and the consumption behaviors of the communities, and also health and nutrition outcomes, and also how within the households, how these food shared with among the household members, like intra-household food dynamics, and also how the climate stresses impact on the food availability. As we all know, Sri Lanka faces frequent droughts and floods with the changes in the rainfall patterns now, with the climate change. So within those periods, the prices are rising up. So the impact of those kind of activities, and then the within those periods, how households cope these issues, like household level coping strategies, and also the gender dimensions in food systems and nutrition. These are some qualitative evidences. These are several examples actually, how the demographic differences, the evidences that we found. And finally, these are the policy insights. So, Sri Lanka still faces nutrition gaps due to poor coordination between trade and fiscal policies and also the nutritional goals. So we need to target the subsidies and we need to go for rationalized tariffs rates, and also we have to strategically manage the imports, and also we have to go with regular nutritional interventions. So finally, we recommend to set up multi-sector coordination across the institutions to make the policy impacts more effective. And also at regional level, the regional collaborations like SACIN to address these kind of issues at the regional level. This is our study team, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Now for the Nepal chapter, may I request Ms. Neelu Thapa.
Thank you, Ms. Imran. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to say that though we were instructed to, bring down the presentation to 8 to 10 slides, I have prepared a full presentation, because when you look at it in a different context, like you'll be putting it in the website, or, when you look at it some other time, it may look incomplete, but I'll be skipping some slides, just giving a glimpse of those slides that are there. Now, coming to my presentation, I will be, linking linking trade, food, and nutrition security in Nepal. Why is it important to talk about trade, nutrition, and food security? Is that Nepal faces significant challenges ensuring food and nutrition security for its diverse population. And though it is an agrarian economy, 37% of people, they face food insecurity, and 6.7% are still undernourished in Nepal. And there are high rates of stunting and wasting in children, and the women, they suffer chronic energy deficiency. And import plays a vital role in meeting our food availability, accessibility, and stability, which are the pillars of food security. Looking at Nepal's food security picture, I've already given you some of the data, but here we have compared the data with the world data, and the undernourishment, the severity of food insecurity, the wasting. It looks high in Nepal. And talking about Nepal's food import dependence, we meet many of our food requirements through import. When you look at this data for cereals, it's almost 127.7% of requirement is met through import. Similar with other products like rice and pulses. For the vegetables and some of the food, it seems to be low, but we share informal trade system with India. We have open borders, so these data may not be very reliable, in the sense that you'll be importing food through the open border, and this is only the data that is recorded in the customs department. And whilst I'm talking about trade food nexus, the food prices in Nepal, it has stayed high for the past few years. Like inflation rate was 6% in 2023 and 10% in 2024. The nutrition outcomes, they are shaped by the same macro and market pressures that define food security. And the trade import, it keeps our shelves full, but it discourages domestic production and investment in agriculture, for that matter. And we have uneven tariffs, in the sense that for the processed food, the import duty is quite low compared to the nutritious ones. Like for the staples, rice, wheat, it is 10%. Though it seems to be low, but looking at the food basket for the poor, the rice and wheat holds a significant portion of the food basket. So this might be higher for the poor, though the figure looks low. And for the nutrition-rich dairy products, the fruits and nuts, it's almost 20 to 30%. So we can say that the tariff policy does not match the nutrition policy. The role of fiscal policy on food security and nutrition, we have subsidies on fertilizers, irrigations, and the government of Nepal is providing school meals. The nutrition might be questionable there as well. But still, the agriculture sector, it gets only 3% of the national budget. It is still, the agriculture sector is plagued by weak infrastructure. The poor storage system is poor, and there's limited irrigation. And the expenses on health and nutrition programs is still not up to the mark that is required. Talking about the consumption pattern, the poor and the rural households, they spend 50% of income on food diets dominated by rice and dal. It covers almost 70% of their food basket. And the increased purchasing power allows households to move beyond basic calorie acquisition to prioritize dietary quality and variety. Like richer families, they eat more meat, milk, and fruit. The urban diets, they seem to be more diverse than the rural diets. And the processed and imported foods are rising. That means we have less healthy choices in the market. So this is just the graphical figure for the things that I just said. And talking about the trade's positives and negatives, the trade's positive seems to be that it ensures food supplies and stabilizes the market. And the negative is that it will increase our import dependency and the farm incentives. Like I've already said, the investment is going to be low. The farm incentives are going to be low. And the cheap imports will also delay in investment in local farming. So there are some of the policies like that guarantees the right to food, starting from the Constitution of Nepal, the Right to Food and Food Sovereignty Act. Some of the policies are there, and we have also reviewed the fiscal and trade policies, like National School Health and Nutrition Strategy in Nepal and National Food Safety Policy. There's this multi-sectoral nutrition policy which the implementation of which saw a substantial decline in stunting. So these are important policies that I have listed down, though I'm not going to touch upon all these. So once we have reviewed the policies, we came up with some policy gaps that were there in Nepal's plans and policies. The plans and policies, they do exist, but few, they do not address Nepal's status as a net food importer. There's this structural issue that they have failed to address. And there are weak linkages between trade, agriculture, and nutrition policies. And the policies are there, but there have not been any sustainable and consistent follow-up which will affect its impact. Like some plans and policies, they emphasize much on food security and nutrition, and that we do not see the same thing in the other plans that follow them. And of course, there are the financial gaps which have always been there. And the way forward that we have identified is that we need to strengthen our domestic food production, and we need to invest in climate smart and nutrition sensitive agriculture. We need to reform our agriculture support and market systems, and we need to consistently prioritize food security and nutrition programs, and also revisit the existing plans and policies to assess their impact, and we need to address their shortcomings. We need to reform the subsidies and tariff policies. For example, 3/4 of the subsidies are in chemical fertilizers, and tariff policies, they should encourage healthy choices. And we need to align our trade and food policies. Trade policies do not consider health outcomes of imported food products, neither does it consider any dimensions while exporting nutritious food products. So that is all in my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neil Thapa. With this, we come to the Bangladesh chapter. May I request Mr. Sefi to please.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone, the esteemed chairs and the moderators and the fellow panelists. I'm Badruddin Safi. I'm a research associate based in our foundation, Bangladesh. And in our panel, please go to the slide 2. in our presentation, we try to cover up the current nutritional status, the challenges that we are facing, be it the population, the declining agricultural land, and the urban-rural divide. And then we try to cover some policies of current policies in our country and the key policy recommendations that we have. And if we go to the next slide, then we can see that the currently Bangladesh also, similar to Nepal and Pakistan, we are also facing a triple burden of malnutrition. And the vitamin A deficiency affects nearly 50% of our children, and around 29% of the non-pregnant, non-lactating mother are now facing the folate and anemia deficiencies as well. And, oh, okay. So, yeah, it helps. Thank you. So as I was saying, that we have some nutrition crisis in our country, and following that, we also have some purchasing power crisis and economic inequalities in our country as well. And these overall nutritional crises is not happening in a vacuum. I would say it's being amplified by a pressure cooker of some converging forces. The first of all is the rising population in our country. Though we have made some commendable progress in controlling our birth rates, in controlling the maternal mortality rates, but still we have the uptrained population in our country. We are the 8th most populous country in the world, and among them, around 90% of our people is still living in the national poverty line. And due to the rapid urbanization, nearly 32% people now currently live in the urban areas, and that number is still increasing. And if you look at the declining agricultural land that we have, as we have this uptrend population in our country, so therefore we have to make some places for those people to live. And due to the rapid urbanization, we have the continuous loss of cultivable lands, and we are losing around 2,500 to 3,000 hectares of agricultural land per year for non-agricultural uses. So therefore, with this, we have to face economic growth and inequality as well. So due to the rapid urbanization, due to the industrialization, and every other development aspects that you can heard and see about Bangladesh, it's all true. But along with that line, there are some inequality persist. And if you see with the latest data that the national poverty currently increased from 19% to 28% in 2025, and it's a lot. So, and if you can see to my second slide, that the first graph that I have, the current cost of healthy diet is increasing, and the purchasing power of our people is decreasing. So if a person wants to have access to the healthy diets, that chances is becoming less day by day. And as a result, most of the diets of our people are highly dominated by the carbohydrates, the rice, potatoes, and the pulses. And we have less access to the energy, protein, and the fat intake. So, and these are some factors which are caused by the rising inflation. If you look at our inflationary status, you can see that among all the indexes to measure the inflation, be it the GL index, the food index, the non-food index, if we look at the 4 to 5 year trends, in all aspects, the inflation is heavily rising. So therefore, it affects the consumer's purchasing power. And along with that line, the agriculture wage index is also increasing. So we have to pay more money to the wage earners, the agricultural laborers. So that means that the cost of cultivation increase. So it also further contributes to the higher food prices. And if you look at the inequality, especially the urban-rural divide, you see, and we analyze the household income expenditure data from 2010 to 2022, and you see that still in our rural areas, people are more prompted to intake rice and carbohydrates products, and they are less likely to have mates compared to their urban counterparts. And in the urban areas where the urbanization is happening, people are more likely to have the foods that were taken outside, i.e. the highly ultra processed foods or the foods that we considered sometimes as junk foods. So that's highly likely taken by the urbanites. And if you look at the import tax incidence in our country, we have these, I would say, an excessive tax burden like imposed to us in accessing the healthy diets, especially for the fruits like apples and oranges. So we have to pay at around 118% total tax incidence when we would like to access those healthy fruits. And that number, the prices of apples and oranges, is still increasing in our country. And we have our advisor here, so maybe she can also shed some light on that as well.
Local fruits. What is the point in importing apple and orange when you can get the same nutrition from guava, which is our native?
That's a good point. But again, we also have to consider the availability of those fruits to the urban and rural people as well. And if we look at the policies in our country, our first policy was enacted in 1988, and we currently have the National Food and Nutritional Security and Policy and Plan of Action 2021 to 30. It's a 10 years policy and policy plan of action. And in this, the latest one, we are aiming for the nutrition security. We are aiming for the women and youths to have better access to healthy diets. And this is they have this costed action plan. And we are really hoping that once it's being implemented throughout all the ministries, it may give us some better results. And by saying that, we try to propose some policy recommendations, especially through the fiscal policies. As currently what we have in our country is that we have these around 25 to 30% supplementary duties on the carbohydrate beverages, carbonated beverages in our country, the sugar sweetened beverages. So a couple of years back, our National Communicable Disease Control Unit from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and WHO, they prepared a report and they argued why the taxes should be increased on sugar sweetened beverages, and that should be increased in a multi-tiered method, not a singular method, because the sugar sweetened beverages can be purchased in number of formats, in number of forms. Like we are seeing for the tobaccos in our country, due to the lack of multi-tier system, the government is losing a lot of money. So if we are to go to put more taxes on the sugar sweetened beverages, that should be the multi-tier system, and that taxes should be earmarked for the nutritional activities in the country. And the government also need to put emphasis on the growing burden of obesity and overweight in the country, especially among the urban youths. Because in some of our early research, it showed that the youths, they often don't have the healthy diets, especially the fruits in their tiffin, and their guardians often prompted them to purchase the junk foods or the fast foods for the tiffin right outside their schools. And the government sectors, they should be incentivized for the food fortification, the investment in nutrition sector, especially the agriculture sector, through artificial intelligence, through technological innovations, through setting up special economic zones, and the low interest rates should be considered by the government. And in terms of the trade policies, I think we need to opt for some long-term bilateral trade agreements. And as far as I know, that the government is currently considering or have already considered long-term agreements with US and some other countries to import the foods that we require in our country. And the government should ensure more access to equipment and technology to the farmers and the agri-entrepreneurs in the country as well. And to the last, what we would like to say is that the latest development in our country on August 20th, 35 ministries came together to have a joint declaration on strengthening interministerial collaboration for multi-sector action on NCD prevention and control in our country. And it's important because it integrates the health promotion into all 11 policies across all the ministries in our country. And they all agree to implement the WHO recommended best buy interventions. And thus, it promotes the healthy diets to ensure a healthier, more productive workforce. And by saying this, we really look forward to a health in all policies approach to tackle the triple burden of malnutrition in our country. And thank you so much. Thank you so much to the SDPI team, especially Imrana and Dua. They are working really hard for us to get in here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sefi. Now, this concludes our presentation section of this session. We now come towards the special comments. Starting with Mr. Uday Namalgama, I will request you to give special comments, especially in the perspective of the Sri Lanka report.
Good afternoon. Actually, it's an honor to join this important dialogue on transformation food system to the fiscal and trade policy reforms. Actually, we heard 4 different presentations, very interesting. And we understood that this is a issues that lies in the heart of the development and health and economic resilience in the South Asian countries. So across the Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh and Pakistan, food systems are under immense pressure. So we face dual burden, persistent malnutrition, also stunning among the vulnerable population, and alongside rising trend in obesity and non-communicable diseases. So this is direct link with dietary transitions. So despite significant investment on agricultural and social protections, our policy framework is still struggle to connect fiscal and trade reforms with nutrition outcomes. So actually, this is the research gap, I think. So while much attention has been paid food production and trade balance, far less known about how fiscal instruments like food subsidy, import tariff, consumption taxes, and trade measures like import quota and preferential trade agreements actually affect nutrition outcomes. So most countries in our region design these measures to ensure food price stability or revenue generations. Yet their indirect impact on dietary quality or affordability or nutrient-rich foods and household welfare remain poorly quantified. There is no quantification of how these affect reforms like trade reforms and policy reforms, fiscal reforms impact on that outcomes. For example, trade liberalization may reduce price for imported staple foods, improving calorie availability, but it can discourage local productions of pulses and fruits and dairy, also undermine the dietary diversity. Similarly, fiscal incentives meant to support farmers often fail to address affordability of health food for low-income consumers. So, what should we do that close this gap, research gap? I think we need for all 4 countries integrated quantitative evidence linking macroeconomics policy shift with micro level nutrient outcomes. So I suggest models such as CGE, computer by general equilibrium model, because this model very useful for other developed countries. So GTAP framework combined with household data can simulate how tariff changes or VAT adjustment or trade agreements ripple through markets to influence nutrient access and welfare. So we can identify what is the effect of that welfare effect and nutrient effect under those measures. So this kind of evidence can guide ministries of finance or trade or health to move beyond sectoral silos and design nutrition sensitive policy reforms. So we suggest that to overcome this research gap for all 4 countries. Also, when we heard all the 4 different presentations, I think there is the South Asia food system transformation required regional collaborations, because our countries share similar vulnerabilities like volatile food prices and import dependence and limited fiscal space, but also share an opportunity to learn from each other. There is similar issues in our 4 countries. And by fostering regional research partnerships, harmonizing policy objectives, we can turn fiscal and trade reforms into tools that promote nutrient security rather than simply food security. Also, finally, I would like to say, transforming food system is not only about producing more, it is about producing and trading better. Evidence-based fiscal and trade policies can make nutritious food more accessible and affordable, but while safeguarding the farmers' livelihoods and economic stability of all 4 countries. So finally, let us work together as researchers and policymakers and practitioners of the all countries to ensure that South Asia next phase of economic reforms is also nutrition transformations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. With this, may I request now for the second special commentator, Ms. Shabnam Shivakoti, to please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Honorable, okay, it's working, right? Honorable Chair of this session, all the fellow panelists, presenters. First of all, let me thank the organizer, STPI, and Swati particularly for bringing me here and to hear about the research work that is going on in 4 of the countries. Truly benefited. So to begin with, because all the 4 presenters, has given a similar kind of scenario when we talk about the food system transformation, be it about the issues that is evident everywhere is the triple burden of malnutrition, and particularly in the later decade, this obesity is really getting a new burden for most of the countries. So that has come out very well, and about how the fiscal policies and other trade policies can have the impact on overall nutrition achievements, that has come out very strongly. So coming to the presentations from Nepal, the report has the study has really captured what are the existing mechanisms, what are the existing policies, what are the gaps. So based on that, maybe I would like to shed some lights upon based on the presentation and also from some of the experience, because I've been working with the Ministry of Agriculture for some time, and how the government is looking at those policies and how we are changing those policy regime to accommodate nutrition as a major intervention point. So I rightly pointed out that when we're talking about the food system, because what we are producing, what we are eating, and what we are importing is, I think we can discuss around the theme, like what we are producing, what is available in the market, what is available at the home for the farmers, for the individuals to consume. I think that is very critical, and most of the fiscal policies, government fiscal policies, have given sufficient support towards increasing the production. Especially since I'm from the Ministry of Agriculture, we're focused particularly on increasing the production and productivity of the food. But that has also changed in the later part of the year. If we look at our investment maybe a decade back and now, because most of the focus was on some of the cereals and maybe some fruits and vegetables, but now the focus has changed to investment in the nutrient-dense food, more on the nutrition side. So the one is the production regime is also changing from the production point of view, but at the same time, how we are interacting with the health, because nutrition was never central to our interventions, to our interventions. So nutrition has really now in the picture of the programs and policies that is focused by the Ministry of Agriculture. So that means there has been a lot of policy alignment in the agriculture policies with the health and nutrition elements in the past several years. But now when we talk about the accessibility, when we talk about the food has really become expensive. The nutritious food has really become expensive. One recent study done by the National Planning Commission has shown that the cost of the nutritious food, the same calorie coming from diverse source is twice as much as expensive than the same calorie coming from few of the cereals and few of the other crops. So that means that whenever we are talking about the overall nutrition gain, this is very important, that what we eat, whether that food is accessible, economically accessible for all the people. So the equity portion is also there. So that has really come out strongly, that how we can make our food, we can produce it cheaper, and how it is accessible to the large part of the community. So that is really come out in various of the policy dimensions. So that is very critical. So government's focus is also on reducing the cost of the production, so that the food are cheaper. So that means a lot of subsidies goes on the production activity, right from the infrastructures, right from the inputs, right from various sources also come out with the study. And then coming to the trade policy, now I'll touch upon the trade policy, how trade policy has really put the nutrition in the center. I think that is not really, as I perceive from other countries also, it's not very encouraging, because the way nutrition has remained central to many of our agriculture policy, food policies, this trade policy doesn't really truly reflect that. Because if you look at our Nepal's overall the government expenditure, most of the revenues comes from the taxes, right? But because we do not export much, there's a large trade deficit going on for several years. So for us, revenue is the major source of the public funding, so domestic financing. So in that sense, the lens, for taxing, or some of the like SSBs or the other things, or how we look at the tariff, I think that is very critical. How we perceive it from the nutritious point of view. One example was that why these walnuts and other products that you said, which are very nutrient dense, but they are expensive, they have high taxes. The reason is because government depends on the revenues, the tax revenue mostly for the public financing. That's why, despite these some of the nutritious food, government has not really done these reforms in these areas. So I think that has come out very strongly, and I also feel that the trade policies need also to align with those agriculture and nutrition policies. So that has come out very strongly, and I also fully support on that one. And probably another dimension is about, as our chair was asking about the right to food perspective, right? So Nepal has also adopted the food system transformation pathways. So out of the 5 action tracks that has been approved by the UN system, Nepal has additional 6th track, that is with the right to food and food sovereignty, because Nepal's constitution has the right to food and food sovereignty, and we have a subsequent separate act for the right to food and food sovereignty act and regulations in place. And this has very much focused into the production and distribution of the nutrient dense food, focusing more on for the source of production, mostly focusing on the local resources, local inputs. So this has given a lot of input. And also in terms of the relief packages, like because of the climate change and other disasters, many people are vulnerable. And so this act has also focused on, during the distribution of the relief packages also, that has to be nutritious and also has to include the local foods, particularly focusing on the local production. So there has been the shift in this policy dimension in that sense. But if we look at the government expenditure, again, this is very, very low amount of, out of the national budget, only 3% is really spent on the agriculture side. So whenever the overall basket of the food production, we really have to understand that how this food basket is changing also, because the food the driver of food choices is really changing. If you look at the current food consumption, be it in the urban market, among the children, even at the rural household, the food basket is changing. The composition food that we derive is changing. So how we can address that to the awareness, to the consumer awareness, to the media, maybe to the consumer, to the public awareness that has also come out from other studies also, I think that is very much critical on to make the people right choices, that what do they want to eat, and also to make those foods accessible, nutritious food accessible, so that people go for those kind of foods. And then in the larger picture, that has a contribution in the nutrition gain and broadly on the economy and the GDP. So I think this has come out very well in the study, and also supported by other things. So my few maybe the take home message would be about aligning the trade policies in view of the nutrition as central. And of course, and also we have to look into because in this study, maybe probably we can also look into the consistency of the policy, because the tax policies, they keep changing. Every year they keep changing. So that means we cannot really say that whether these are nutrition sensitive or not. And whether maybe for the last few years, if we can do the analysis on what are those tax burdens on some of those nutrition dense food, then probably we can get a better picture on whether this is really addressing. Maybe with that we can add to the this research, if we as this is still ongoing, the research is still ongoing. And another is about the overall policy, because here we are talking about the nutrition, fiscal, and the trade policies. But I think when we look at the multilateral, the coordination among the multiple agencies, I think that goes beyond this, because sometimes the commerce policy, how the commerce policy are reflected in those policies, that is also to be, because even now when we are talking about the fiscal and trade policy, that is still incomplete, I would say, because where we are talking about it, there are subsequent other policies also that equally affect and shape what we eat, how we eat. So in that sense, maybe we can have still the continuous researches on those other policies, other intersectoral policies, and that can have an impact on these. So in that sense, I think the research from Nepal and also from other countries can definitely have given a lot of insights, and also how, because as a person working in the policy sector, I think these kind of evidence-based policies, this is very much critical for us to sit together with maybe the Minister of Finance, Minister of Commerce, Health, and us together in this kind of, because there are mechanisms are there. There's a Food and Nutrition Security Coordination Committee at the very high level is there, chaired by the Vice Chair of the National Planning Commission. But again, when we are talking about the health, it is only the nutrition specific interventions, and we're talking about the agriculture is mostly nutrition sensitive. So I think now is the time that we go beyond it and talk with the other relevant agencies in having policies, other cross-sector policies also with the nutrition at the center. So yes, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just on time. Okay. So with this, all the speaking part, the presentations, the special comments are done. This now brings us to our chair. And as I request you to please go ahead and share your thoughts based on your experience and expertise, and especially from the lens of policy recommendations, what all that has been pointed out, what can our governments do? Because the position that you have, you can speak for all the governments right now. So speak for all of them, make recommendations, suggestions, some takeaways that this information, like taking from the best practices, our joint problems, how we can possibly, if surfacing from this would be a long shot, but how to at least survive this to progress in the right direction. Also, the very word SAC, does it come anywhere among the discussions in your fellow ministries, like in different countries or in your own country, and the future of it in this background?
Thank you very much. Let me start with the last point that you raised about SARC. Yes, SARC is often mentioned. There is the positive countries who first come forward to help their neighbors, and they come forward to help their neighbors with food. So although the regional integrity that we expected SARC to have We are yet to reach there. But the empathy, sympathy, compassion, feeling, support, cooperation in times of necessity is always there. The dark side is every time we talk about SARC, we talk about SARC with a sigh. The reason is we wanted it to behave in a particular way. We wanted it to find a given direction, but it hasn't really found that direction. Now, getting back to the discussion that we had today, we have to remember that we are talking about rights of people to have access to food, to have access to adequate food, to have access to nutritious food, to have access to food that's affordable. And for those who are, people for whom we are discussing things here, looks at things in their own ways. They do not necessarily pick up the language of the researchers or the policymakers. And there is sometimes clear disconnection between what we do, what we say, and how they feel about things. Of course, people who are present in this room, whether they are from the government sector or from the research sector or from non-profit sector, they have connection with the people. But whether we have managed to put all the dots together to make a perfect circle remains the question. And now that I'm in the government, fortunately, this is not a partisan government, it's an interim government, and we have been put to the chair because there was a crisis in the country and people thought we will be dealing with their crisis honestly. And I'm in charge of two ministries, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and Ministry of Water Resources. And 1.5 years is very small a period. The first 4 months we had to spend in firefighting because everybody was unhappy about every single thing. And the last 4 months we'll spend on election. So although it was 1 year, 6 months, we will actually not be doing things in regular pace in 8 months at least. What I have realized is governments are traditional governments, conventional governments are very interested in mega projects. They are not interested in making investment for addressing hunger issues, for education purposes. You talk to them about having a flyover or several flyovers or a very big, the longest bridge of South Asia, they're very interested. You talk to them about finance, the answer is, but we have to think about our capacity. When it comes to a mega project, some huge infrastructure capacity always do not become the issue. In education, in food sovereignty, in food security, it becomes an issue. So I think we need a paradigm shift there. People, but in Bangladesh can actually take ferries because we have got rivers. We don't really instantly need a bridge, but we always need food. And creativity of a nation will not come if the population is not fed properly. Of course, research is important. Of course, evidence is important. But the evidence that we get, do we consider those in designing our development package? When it's said that this number of Bangladeshi people are malnourished, do we sit and try to find out how much of the budget allocation, as he was talking about allocation, should go to these people And this should be considered as the first and foremost priority of the government, and the other bridge or few other roads can stay for 5 years. Evidence is there, but there has to be appetite in the policymakers to take into consideration those evidence and respond to it. Design the development package in response to the evidence that is put forward. I give you one example. And on the trade issues, see, we are now having bilateral dealing with US on tariff, and food item is listed there. And oftentimes when you do your trade agreements, you only make those public when those are finalized and signed. Prior to that, the drafts never go to the people. So in any trade regime, I don't think people's basic right to food should be weaponized. If you think about what's happening in Palestine now, there's no dearth of food in this world. But is the food reaching the people there in Palestine? I mean, they don't want food from you. They just want right over their land so that they can grow their own food. That's also being denied. So on GMOs, people may have different opinions, but those who oppose it also have the right to say no to it. Those who think it's safe, they can go ahead with it. If you don't like it, you have the right not to accept it. But these are, I mean, on evidence, when we talk about evidence, it also depends on which set of evidence you want to deal with, or which set of evidence you're being forced to deal with. Because you are not necessarily the chooser. There are external factors that you have to consider. In our part of the world, we used to rely a lot on coconut oil and mustard oil. But if you follow the Western jargon, neither coconut oil nor mustard oil is safe. What is safe? The soybean oil. And there are trade issues, there are tariff issues involved in it. So when we talk about evidence, what set of evidence, who produces the evidence, who sells the evidence to whom, are also questions we are having to deal with. In this era of climate change, I think the corporate grip over food production in the name of climate solution will increase. We have not codified our traditional practices. We have not invested in research. We have not institutionalized the traditional research practices of the farmers. We have gone for the shortcut process, where foreign corporations come in, they sell their hybrid qualities, that comes in package with their fertilizers and their pesticides, and we are, with each passing day, becoming more reliant on those products. Talking about safe food is met with stiff resistance from the conventional governments because they think they need to produce more. But with more production, we have not necessarily fed all those who are hungry. So your production system, your allocation, your distribution, all has to be equitable. We still have missing links there. On right-based, I mean, when there is a mechanism in Bangladesh, it's called the Purchase Committee. So I don't know for what reason, I only buy saris, but they have put me in the government purchase committee. So I see the purchase proposals, and we see I get to see the amount of TSP fertilizer that we are purchasing each year. All we need is farmers education program, because TSP is not something you need in such high quantity. It is just needed for the growth of the tree. The tree looks healthier. But the Department of Agriculture Extension is reluctant to go for farmers education and tell them you actually don't need this amount of TSP. You can drastically reduce it, make it half right away, and the production will be as high as it is with the amount of TSP that you are using. That education is completely missing. So I think education, dedicated education program for the farmers is needed. And I think most of the South Asian countries can get it done at the government level, because education extension services is quite extensive in our part of the world. On this very important thing of economic cost of malnutrition, I don't think we have really disseminated this set of messages to our common people. What is the economic benefit of a bridge? People know about it. What is the economic cost of malnutrition? I don't think people are aware of it, or we have made people aware of it. And how we do this cost benefit analysis is also something our governments have to think about. In my country, I see that the government has special programs like school tiffin programs. From my ministry, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, we have this climate change fund. And from that fund, we have given small amount to Ministry of Agriculture to help the farmers with mini cold storages. Big cold storages will require huge investment, but if we can go for small mini storages, farmers can store their product and can actually get price, the proper price, because the volatile nature of the market on agricultural product lasts for 7 to 15 days. And then the price again starts falling or again starts going up, whichever suits the farmers. So farmers are very excited about the idea. On allocations, the farmers don't get price for their production. Food production is becoming really expensive, and farmers are not getting price for potato. They're not getting price for tomato. They're not getting price for rice. The government is having to step in and offer special price to the farmers to meet their production cost. And farmers are actually becoming disinterested in agricultural production, which is a bad news for us, which means we'll have to rely on import for meeting our food demand, which is not at all very wise. So in Bangladesh, we are having hard time to ensure that farmers are getting price for their production. We are okay to purchase an Indian lehenga or a Pakistani kamdani set for our wedding. But the moment the price of rice increases by 2 taka, there is huge hue and cry in the society. So they're also disseminating the evidence-based information to general people and telling them that you have to invest in your food and you have to invest in safe food is a messaging that we need to do as government. Farmers' right, I think, should be codified. On loss of agricultural land, it's a huge problem in Bangladesh because it's a land scarce country. That is not the reality here, or perhaps in India or in Sri Lanka. I very much support the proposal for increasing tariff on unhealthy food and reducing on healthy food. But I think we have to invest in the food choice of the Gen Z. They're doing very good in terms of creating political unrest. I like them because they're saying the right set of things, but their food choice also has to be proper. So they need political orientation as to why they have to move away from fast food to locally produced food. Everyone in Bangladesh wants to have tomato in summer. Tomato is not a vegetable that you can get, that you should expect throughout the year. But they want it, and because there is a customer demand, huge amount of preservative is put in tomato. In terms of education, people also have to be told that there's something called seasonality. And you get certain things in a season, you don't get certain things in another season, and that's okay. Otherwise, you promote governments to impose tariff on your food and the price goes up. On product consumption, I think when we talk about food system, we have to emphasize on consumption pattern also. In this globalized world, it is changing very fast. I've got 3 children. My third one has gone to Malaysia to study. And with my other 2, when they went abroad for study, I did not really bother. I was very sad about what food will they have. I knew that they'll be missing Bangladeshi food. With the third one, a pure Gen Z, I don't really worry about it because he's not used to having Bangladeshi food. He's used to having foreign food, which is not a good news. So consumption pattern also have to change, both for food and how you consume electricity. It's 5. I think the day is quite bright outside, but look at how we have designed our campus. Even in broad daylight, we need lights like this. So with these words, I would like to conclude here. Let me see if I have missed something. No. So I think in terms of allocation, in terms of protective measure for the farmers, in terms of taking grip over our own production system, there's a long way to go. And tariff should not be used against countries like ours when we get into tariff on food, when we get into trade negotiation. Thank you very much. And thank you to the excellent speakers and the panel.
Thank you so much, Ms. Saida Rizwana Hassan. We thank you for identifying these stakeholders, these issues, and all that you have highlighted. You have opened up quite a few avenues for discussion and further work on this. We really thank you for this. And also on behalf of STPI and all the organizers, and I think my panelists too will join me in extending a thank you to our Honorable Chair for taking up this role and wrapping it up so wonderfully. I thank you all, our audience, our speakers, our honorable guests, each and every one of you. I thank you for agreeing to become part of this session, especially the ones who have been traveling from abroad, the visa issues that you faced and your perseverance, and you came through, the ones who are in Islamabad for being our support, each and every one of you. So thank you to our excellent panel and congratulations on this wonderfully done session. So I'll request our panel to please let us line up for one group photograph before we step out for tea. Our organizers here will lead our audience and panelists to the high tea spots. Thank you.